Imagine waking up to the headline that a foreign government has just gifted a former U.S. president a luxury private jet worth nearly $500 million. Not a lease, not a government contract, not even a trade deal, a gift. A gleaming $400 million jumbo jet, free. Think about the implications for just a moment, because if this is real, it's not only one of the boldest acts of corruption in modern history, it's a direct threat to America's national security. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's not late-night satire.
The General personally signed off on this clearly unethical deal. I am announcing a hold on all DOJ political nominees until we get more answers. Here are some questions that must be answered. First, I call on the DOJ's Foreign Agent Registration Act Unit, or the FARA unit, to do its job and disclose all activities by Qatari foreign agents inside the U.S. that could benefit President Trump or the Trump Organization. Since Attorney General Bondi took charge, the Department of Justice has not been doing its job when it comes to FARA. The FARA unit needs to enforce the law and inform the public of all activities, not just on this luxury plane deal, but all deals involving foreign countries in the Middle East and President Trump, his family, and the Trump Organization. Second, with regard to this $500 million private jet deal, the American people deserve to know the facts. President Trump has told the American people this is, quote, a free jet. Does that mean the Qataris are delivering a ready on day one plane with all the security measures already built in? If so, who installed those security measures? And how do we know they were properly installed? Why would we take the risk of trusting any foreign country to do this sensitive work? If not, what security modifications would be needed to ensure a foreign-sourced Air Force One is safe to use? If this is, as President Trump promised, a free jet, will the Qataris pay for those highly sensitive installations, or will American taxpayers cover the cost? How much will those modifications cost American taxpayers? Hundreds of billions of dollars? Hundreds of millions of dollars? Billions of dollars? How much will they cost? If the American taxpayers are forced to pay for this temporary plane, does it mean the U.S. government will cancel the contract for the future Boeing plane? If so, how much will that cancellation cost? And if not, why are American taxpayers being asked to spend hundreds of millions of dollars or more on a plane that will only be used for a year or two? Additionally, who in the Trump administration was responsible for this crooked deal? What are the parameters of this deal? And which country brought it up first, us or them? What is Qatar being offered in return? Considering past security disasters, such as the U.S. Embassy in Moscow, what are the security risks of this arrangement? And finally, how is this gift not naked corruption? The Attorney General must testify before both the House and Senate to explain why gifting Donald Trump a private jet does not violate the Emoluments Clause, which requires congressional approval, or any ethics law. So, until the Attorney General explains her blatantly inept decision, and we get complete and comprehensive to these and other questions, I will place a hold on all political nominees to the Department of Justice.
That's the thunderclap moment Senator Chuck Schumer dropped on the Senate floor when he alleged that Qatar, one of the world's richest energy states, handed over a massive private jet to be used as a stand-in for Air Force One, and that the Department of Justice signed off on it. If that doesn't stop you in your tracks, it should. Because this story isn't just about a luxury plane, it's about money, loyalty, and foreign influence colliding at the highest level of American power. And here's the kicker, this is only the beginning of the story, because once you start pulling on this thread, the entire sweater of corruption, influence, and compromised justice begins to unravel. The sheer audacity of the deal is breathtaking. We're talking about a country with vast oil and gas wealth essentially dropping a $400 million gift into the lap of a former president who could very well return to office. That's not lobbying, that's not diplomacy, that's a bribe wrapped in polished aluminum. Schumer made it plain this isn't about optics, it's about the Constitution. The emoluments clause exists for exactly this reason. It bars U.S. officials from accepting gifts or benefits from foreign powers without Congress signing off. The founders had seen how kings and emperors bought loyalty with lavish presents. They knew gifts weren't free, they came with strings. And here we are centuries later, staring at what could be the most blatant violation of that safeguard in history. But the outrage doesn't stop at constitutional law. It strikes at something deeper: the security of the United States itself. Air Force One isn't just a plane, it's a flying fortress. It carries encrypted communications, advanced defense systems, secure command centers, and technology designed to withstand global crises. Every switch, every wire, every hidden system matters. Now ask yourself, who installed those systems if the plane came from Qatar? Who had access to the avionics? Who tested the communications networks? Are we seriously supposed to trust that a foreign government delivered a $500 million aircraft without leaving any backdoors, surveillance tools, or vulnerabilities? It would be naive to think otherwise. History gives us plenty of warnings. Remember the U.S. Embassy in Moscow during the Cold War, when hidden listening devices were discovered embedded in the walls, or when China was accused of slipping backdoor chips into supply chains. These weren't accidents, they were deliberate moves to compromise U.S. security. Now magnify that risk 1,000 times, because we're talking about the potential aircraft of a U.S. president. This isn't just corruption, it's a national security nightmare. But here's where the scandal sharpens even more: the role of the Justice Department. According to Schumer, this deal didn't happen in some dark corner without oversight. It was allegedly greenlit by the Attorney General herself, Pam Bondi. That's not just a red flag, it's a flashing siren. The Justice Department is supposed to be the guardian of law and order, the neutral arbiter that ensures no one is above the law. But if the AG personally signed off on a deal that hands a foreign government leverage over the presidency, then the DOJ isn't protecting America, it's protecting corruption. And this isn't the first time Bondi's name has come up in ethically murky waters. She has long-standing ties to Trump's political orbit and connections to lobbying networks with foreign interests. This isn't an isolated mistake, it fits into a troubling pattern, a revolving door where money, politics, and foreign influence swirl together until the line between justice and loyalty disappears. And that raises the bigger question: when does loyalty to an individual end, and loyalty to the Constitution begin? To understand why Qatar might even attempt something this audacious, you need to look at the bigger picture. For years, Qatar has invested billions into buying influence across the globe. From its ownership of Al Jazeera, to sponsoring the World Cup, to pouring money into Washington lobbyists, Qatar has mastered the art of turning wealth into political leverage. A $400 million jet isn't generosity, it's strategy. With that kind of gift, Qatar could be buying more than just goodwill. It could be buying a voice in U.S. foreign policy, favorable treatment in trade, or silence on issues like regional conflicts and human rights. In the world of geopolitics, money doesn't just talk, it shouts. And this jet could be one of the loudest messages ever delivered. So when Schumer asks, what is Qatar getting in return, it's not just a rhetorical question, it's the heart of the matter. Because no foreign government spends nearly $500 million without expecting something in return. And here's why the emoluments clause matters more than ever. The founders understood that foreign governments would try to manipulate U.S. leaders with money and gifts. They knew corruption didn't always come in the form of suitcases full of cash. It came in favors, in access, in lavish presents that tied one nation's fate to another's influence. That's why Schumer's outrage resonates. This isn't a partisan squabble, it's a constitutional crisis. Because if a president or even a former president with the potential to return to office can accept a $400 million gift without consequence, then the entire safeguard collapses. And once that door is opened, it doesn't close again. Other countries will line up, checkbooks open, ready to buy their piece of American power. Schumer didn't just give a fiery speech and call it a day, he laid down a gauntlet. He announced that he would place a hold on all Department of Justice political nominees until answers are given. That's not symbolic, it's leverage. It grinds the machinery of government to a halt until accountability is forced into the open. It's a rare moment when one senator's outrage becomes a strategy to demand transparency, and it shows how high the stakes really are. Because if the DOJ refuses to explain this deal, then democracy itself starts looking like it's up for auction. Here's the bigger danger, and it's one every American should pay attention to. If this deal stands, if a foreign government can buy loyalty with a luxury plane, then democracy isn't just weakened, it's compromised at its core. Because once corruption is normalized, once foreign money is woven into the fabric of leadership, accountability becomes nearly impossible. The free jet isn't just about one plane, it's a symbol of pay-to-play politics on a scale we've never seen before. A symbol of how the line between public service and personal profit has been obliterated, and a symbol of how fragile democracy becomes when money speaks louder than the Constitution. So let's be clear, this isn't about luxury, it's not about who gets to fly in style. It's about whether the U.S. government has been compromised and whether the American people are willing to accept it. Because if $500 million can buy silence, loyalty, and influence in Washington, then we've got a far bigger problem than corruption. We've got a democracy for sale, and that's why this story matters. Not just in headlines, not just in political circles, but in the very future of the United States. Because if the people don't demand answers, if institutions don't enforce accountability, then corruption doesn't just survive, it thrives. So ask yourself, who benefits from this deal? Who profits when foreign money controls American decisions, and what's the real cost of silence? If you believe that transparency should never come with a price tag, if you believe democracy shouldn't be auctioned off to the highest bidder, then don't let this story fade. Stay engaged. Because awareness is the first step toward accountability. Like this video, share it with others, and subscribe to the channel. Because sunlight is the best disinfectant, and together we'll keep shining that light on power, no matter how high it sits or how loud it roars.